Welcome, everybody. How are we feeling? Oh, you can tell it's the afternoon, absolutely. Let me try that again. How are we feeling, everybody? Okay, even worse than before. Stop that now, stop that now. I can understand that it's been a long day, but I'll make sure that the next session will be absolutely worth your time. It's about multi-region deployment strategies for CAP application, and the speaker is right here with me already. So everybody give it up for Abdul.
Thank you. So, welcome everyone. In this session, I will be talking about multi-region deployment strategies while we are developing CAP application. And the good news is I will not show you any single lines of code, so you can rest in this session. I will just talk about some architectural concepts that I have been facing during my CAP implementation, and I will show you the main challenge that I have been facing during this implementation part. Let's begin with the challenge. Let's say we have a CAP application. We are all developing CAP application. We are here for that purpose. And let's think about what if one of the services that we are using in BTP connected with our CAP application, if it becomes unavailable? Or what if we have end users spread around to different regions and they have some performance issues, and even your CAP application runs fine, you will have lots of issues with the end users to run this application successfully. So I will start with explaining the typical architecture. When we develop a CAP application, we mainly deploy our application into the Cloud Foundry runtime, and we deploy our HTML5 Fiori applications into the HTML5 application repository. And we will probably have SAP HANA Cloud, we will have maybe document management service. That was in my case, that's why I have included this in the slide. And we will publish our application with the SAP Build Workzone. And including these services, we will be using identity authentication service, destination service, connectivity service, maybe CI/CD, CTMS, or even custom domain service. And while using these applications, these BTP services, we need to ensure the high availability of our applications. And also, we need to think about the performance optimization, scalability, and resilience. Even we develop very simple CAP application, we need to think about lots of different services. Even we are developer, maybe we are not managing these parts, but we need to always think about these parts, and we want to ensure that everything is going fine. So, during this challenge, I started to think about to create a sub-account in another region and replicate all my services in the second region. As you can see in the slide, we can deploy our application to the second region into the Cloud Foundry runtime. We can have HTML5 application repository. We can create a Build Workzone instance on this region, and we can replicate our all configuration with CTMS or manual configuration. And actually, these parts are easier parts. We can create destinations, we can create connectivity parts, etc. But when we come into the HANA Cloud or document management service, now it becomes more complicated, because I tried to use two different HANA Cloud instances, and I tried to find options to replicate our data. But it is almost impossible to have a real-time synchronization between two HANA Cloud instances. Actually, there are some STI or STA tools. You can use kind of replication options, but they are not doing this real time. So if you have two different users accessing two different databases, you will have some latency during the updates of these two databases. So it looks like almost impossible to have two different HANA cloud instances. By the way, HANA Cloud also has internal high availability options. You can enable multi-zone availability setup, and it will actually, in each region, there are different zones. In Europe, there are Frankfurt zone, there are Netherlands zone, or like that. And if you enable multi-zone availability in HANA Cloud, then you will have you will not have region-based high availability, but at least you will get some kind of high availability in the HANA Cloud instance. So instead of replicating HANA Cloud instance, this multi-zone availability looks much better and much easier to implement. So instead of replicating, you can go in that approach. And in document management service, it is another service, and you persist your files into this repository. And if you want to use the same application into two different regions, you need to replicate document management service. And there is no option to replicate files between two different document management services. So you need to have some kind of central DMS system, and your document management service instance can connect to the same file store. Or you can implement kind of synchronization between two repositories, but it will not be real time again. So this configuration is not actually cannot be used for my purpose. So I started to think about another option. Instead of making two regions active, I can stop all my services on the region 2 and deploy my application into the two regions again. In that case, you can run the first region successfully, and if something goes down, you can switch into the second region, but again, you will have the same synchronization issues between the HANA database and document management service. So what I have ended up in the final stage, I tried to build kind of hybrid configuration. And in this hybrid configuration, I have a main region, and all my applications, databases, document management service repositories are installed on that region. And I have replicated Cloud Foundry runtime, HTML5 application repository, and SAP Build Workzone into the second region. But for the HANA Cloud part, I didn't install any HANA Cloud instance into this region, but I have created a user-provided service instance. It works like you can create a user-provided service instance, and you can copy the credentials from the first instance in the first region, and then copy the credentials into the second instance, and your application can connect to this instance through the user-provided instance in the Cloud Foundry. And for the DMS part, there was a different configuration. DMS has an integration option and repository option configuration in the Cloud Foundry spaces. And you can create an integration option. Integration option does not store anything, but you need to have a repository option, and this is the actual place where your files are stored. So in the first region, I have created the document management service repository option and integration option together. And in the second option, I have created the integration option instance, and there was an external configuration option in the DMS setup. Instead of onboarding a new repository in the DMS, I onboarded the external repository pointing to the first region's instance. So in that case, if I go to run my CAP application in the region 2, it connects to the database in the region 1, it connects to the DMS repository in the region 1. But if any of these services fail, my application fails. There is no way to recover it. But if there is a failure on the build work zone in the region 1, I can move to the region 2. If there is a failure in the Cloud Foundry runtime, I can move to the region 2. Also for HTML5 application repository. And from my experience, actually, most of the time I have some downtimes in the work zone, or maybe in the HTML5 application repository. HANA or DMS works much better in terms of availability. So this setup looks much more safe for me. And during the disruption, I need to put some kind of load balancer in front of my work zone. And to be able to achieve this, I need to set up a custom domain in the build work zone, region 1 and also in the region 2, and they need to point to the same custom domain, and load balancer can redirect your request to the region 1 or region 2 depending on the availability. But here it can also check some health check with some health check configurations, but sometimes my system seems to work fine in terms of health check, but when you log into the work zone, it doesn't work. There are some issues with the internal services. So there might be some manual operation needed during disruption in this setup. And for the load balancer, you can use Azure, Amazon, Root, or Google Cloud Services. And there are configuration setup documentation I will be sharing in the end of my session. And you can set up this load balancer in front of your application. And I prepared a more detailed setup for the hybrid configuration. As you can see, I have most of the services in the region 1 and region 2, and only the HANA Cloud instances in region 1, or you can also use the central region that can be connected from region 1 and region 2. When I did my setup, for example, I used the European region and Singapore region, and I had lots of connectivity issues from CAP application to the database. There was some latency, so I need to increase the timeout configuration in the package JSON value. Actually, it was taking some time during the initial connection, but after initial connection, it was working fine. So I think this is acceptable if you don't have any better option. And for DMS, as I have explained, I am using external connection. And to deploy your application into the two different sub-accounts, you can use CI/CD and Cloud CTMS configurations to deploy the same application into the two different regions. And in your Git repository, you can just publish your applications after some pipeline configurations. So I tried to put some kind of pros and cons for each option, and in terms of complexity, in terms of cost, performance during normal operation or disruption, and also availability. As you can see, the first option is the best option, but the cost is high, implementation is almost impossible, but in the hybrid setup, it looks like it is acceptable. Only we will have some kind of performance issues during disruption, but thinking about disruption will not happen too long. So we can just create this sub-account as a backup, and if we have a disruption, then we can activate this part and use during the disruption time. And I tried to list some documentations that will be helpful to set up these configurations. I think the slides will be shared, or you can take the picture, or you can just reach out to me and I can send the links. And I think we have 5 minutes time for questions.
So thanks a lot for that. 5 minutes is an unusually long time, so well done.
Yeah, it wasn't just slides, no codes.
So what about our audience? Do we have any questions? Yes, over there. Good thing you can throw that mic box. Not bad. So everybody on screen online, you couldn't see that, but that was an awesome catch. Well done. What's your question?
So first of all, thank you for the session. I have a question regarding the active-passive setup. You mentioned that this would work via SDA, correct? Or is it SDI?
SDI and SDA can be used. SDI seems more possible, but if you use the SDA, you might lose some data. That's why I didn't use this setup.
But I mean, this would be the official HADR setup recommended by SAP, correct?
Actually, there is an official documentation for this in the second link. What I have presented is not an official one, just I investigated from the documentation, then I choose the best option for me. And it can change for each customer, and depending on the requirements, depending on the priorities.
Yeah. Just a question regarding this. So you said that we might lose some data, right? So let's assume that the active version goes down and we have to switch to the passive version, right? With some data being lost, right? Then we make some changes on the now active version, and then the other version or others availability zone goes online again. How does the reconciliation work in that regard? Do we need to handle it manually?
Actually, the problem here is with SDA or SDI. As far as I understand from the documentation, you can make one of the databases as a main one, and the second one will be replicated from the main database, and it will be read-only. So after the disruption, you need to change this configuration manually, and it should replicate to the first one, but since it is down, it will wait, and after it will goes up, and it should replicate back, and you need to do probably manual change. I think because this is kind of advanced HANA stuff, I think we need to investigate this part more. That's why I switched to the third option, because we have a multi-AZ availability. This is much more safe for me, not 100% safe like active or active-passive setup, but I think it is acceptable in most of the scenarios.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, welcome.
I think we have time for one more question, and conveniently enough, it's at the other side of the room.
Thanks for the presentation. That's actually a common request from customers about resiliency, and I can tell the complexity depending on the services there. So a challenge I could say I have for you, and a question is, how would you regard the feasibility of resiliency when you have build process automation? And I've thought of this myself. It basically implies that you have to synchronize in real time, as you said, workflows, and that's very complex. So
yeah.
I was just curious if someone asks you for
it is a hard
resiliency.
question.
Yes.
Actually, the build process automation is much different concept. It is very hard to replicate the instance. If you replicate this, you cannot synchronize them. So we should rely on the uptime for the build process automation.
All right, thank you.
Yeah?
I think there was one more question down here. Yeah. Can you do us a favor and throw it over without hurting too many people in the process, if possible? Thank you.
Thank you for the talk. I saw in the hybrid version you extracted the HANA database in its own sub-account. Would it also make sense to move the repository option of the DMS also in a separate sub-account?
That could also be possible, right? Yeah. Actually, here in this part, I showed in region 1 and region 2, but you can move to DMS repository into another sub-account. You can even move build workzone into another central sub-account. That could also be possible.
But for DMS, there is no multi-zone option or anything like that.
I don't see any this kind of configuration. So you can create your repository option in another sub-account, and you can just onboard. I think you need to also move to integration option into the second sub-account. So that will make things more complicated in that case. That's why I put the repository option in the region 1, and I can access it easily. And in the region 2, it will connect through the external repository connection, but it will be in the application side, we do not change anything. It will work like a local repository. Even you can, instead of using the repository option, you can use your company's own document management repository. This might be much more feasible if there is a kind of high availability configuration in your own repository, or you can use some other products that you are already using in your company, then you can create the integration option and onboard your repository on your local or on your other DMS system. That could also be an option. I think this will be a good alternative. If you can implement, if you can install any other DMS repository, it should be CMS compliant, then you can use any other product here as well.
Thank you.
Thanks, everybody. Thanks to the speaker, to the questions, and thanks to you.
I want to show my last slide after the QA. I have
Very nice.
released a CAP plugin, just a small advertisement here.
Sure.
CDS number range plugin. You can use this plugin to use number range requirements like we have in S4 systems, and it is already in GitHub and NPM library, so feel free to use and send enhancement requests. Yeah.
So you heard the man, everybody. Go check it out, and most importantly, come back in 8 minutes for our last session of the day. So thank you, Abdul.